Hello, my name's Tony and welcome back to Fragdicted. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a discontinued gem from Tom Ford, and it is one of my favourite fragrances and it is called Plum Japonais. We're also going to be talking about Alexandria Fragrance's interpretation of this. Is this good enough so the original can live on? Stay tuned to find out. So firstly, let's talk about Plum Japonais. Tell you a little bit of the story and why I fell in love with it. We had a trip last summer down to London. We went into the Tom Ford store in Covent Garden. We were really looked after in that store. We did buy something, it wasn't this. I was recommended to try this because we bought the Black Orchid Parfum, me and my wife. And that has a slight plum note in it. I think it has a bit of booze and a bit of vanilla as well. I was recommended this by the store assistant. He said, why not try this? He felt that it was a little bit more masculine, might suit me a little bit better. I tried it, fell in love with it instantly. He gave me a really good size sample in the little vials that they give away. And I had a few wear-ins from that and absolutely just fell in love with it. It then got discontinued, I think in around the November time, December time. And I was really lucky that I opened this from my wife on Christmas Day. She had managed to snag a bottle just before it became discontinued, and boy am I glad that she got hold of it. The notes on this in the top are cinnamon and saffron. In the mid we have Japanese plum, plum blossom, immortelle, liquor, camellia and cypress. And in the base we have oud, amber, benzoin, fir and vanilla. So I love the bottles. I don't need to go into detail of what the bottle looks like in this video. I think you get an idea of what the bottles look like. They look fantastic lined up on a shelf with a few of them. They all match each other exactly in size. I just love the branding from Tom Ford. It's classy and I like it. So this is an eau de parfum concentration. We picked up the 50 ml. It's got like a traditional cologne note to it. I love the way it really changes on the skin. It's got this really photorealistic, juicy plum note, mixed with some boozy notes, mixed with some spices. And I just love the way it changes and develops on the skin. This, I would say, is the nicest spicy fragrance I have tried. It just suits me. It bounces off my skin. I absolutely love wearing it. The booze in this, the accord, the spices. Now the spices, I think they've picked those out really expertly. The cinnamon and the saffron mixed together with those other notes just blow me away. It reminds me a little bit of like a Christmas cake that's been soaked in booze and you keep having to soak it throughout the whole year, and it's aged and it's created this really wonderful, deep, dark and rich Christmas cake. So for that reason, it reminds me a little bit of Christmas. It also reminds me of Christmas because I got it for Christmas. I think it will sing really well in autumn and winter, but it has got this lightness to it as well, and I think that's coming from the florals and the plum blossom. It adds a slight lightness that helps it sort of bounce off the skin. It never sits too heavy. It never becomes too much or too cloying. It's got just enough sweetness, but the spices I would say are the main note, along with the plum and the booze. It is beautiful, it really is. It is such a well done fragrance. Don't let the oud note put you off if you're not into oud. I can hardly smell it. I don't think I even smell it at all. No, you know what, I've made up my mind. I don't smell it at all. I think it's a supporting note to help give it some backbone. I think the benzoin is one of the major notes too, adding this slightly sort of balsamic and resinous quality to it. Absolutely beautiful. One of my favourite fragrances I own, full stop. A lot of people like it for really good reasons, so absolutely gutting that they've decided to discontinue it. But can it live on thanks to Alexandria Fragrances? You know what? Let me talk about it and you'll find out. It is called Forbidden Plum. It's an extrait de parfum. I've used a bit of that, as you can see. Let me talk about on paper first of all. When you spray it on paper, I've tested this on people. It is So close. They have nailed, absolutely nailed that DNA. You can hardly tell the difference from the first spray to the dry down. It does change slightly on skin. The Tom Ford fragrance is a little bit fruitier, it's a little bit more boozy, and it's a little bit deeper and richer and slightly better rounded off. It's slightly better blended to my nose. This one goes a little bit more powdery, but I would say the spices are of a equal quality. Actually, I'd go as far as to say it's even spicier. The spices in this tickle the nostrils slightly, where they're a little bit softer in the original. They both have a similar sweetness to it. So I'm guessing the amount of vanilla they've used in both is pretty equal, because they do have this same slight sweetness in the background of it all, which helps give those spicy notes, the boozy notes, the plum notes. It helps give that all just the right amount of sweetness that's needed. But the vanilla is very soft. It's in the background and it comes through much later on. Actually, the dry down is a little bit sweeter, which often happens with vanilla fragrances, but I wouldn't call this a vanilla fragrance. It's just there to add that touch of sweetness. After the initial opening on it being slightly different, the dry down, they much become the same on skin as well. I would definitely say it's worthy of owning to replace what you can't buy anymore unless you're willing to spend silly money on used examples on eBay. So if you have been really keen to try Plum Japonais, definitely give this a go. I tested this on family at Christmas. At Christmas time, we were allowed family members round, so we had my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and we tried it on my son, my wife, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, myself, and we all blind tested them, and only 2 of us got it wrong, and embarrassingly it was me, which I didn't really live down. That's not fair. Very similar. Everyone agreed on that. If you didn't want to pay for the original, everyone would have been happy with this one. This is, I think, what clone companies that do interpretations do so well. They can reformulate something that may be lacking in performance, something like the Mal, for example, or they could create a discontinued fragrance, which I think is fantastic. I've got another discontinued fragrance from Alexandria Fragrances called Fame 15, which is Andy Warhol's Bond Number 9, and that's given me the opportunity to try something, and I'm sure that would have been very similar to the original as well. But this is fantastic. If you like plums, you're gonna like this. So thanks for watching, really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a comment, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next one. Don't forget to keep smelling wonderful.